The darkness below. Captain Ilara Voss stood at the observation deck of Meridian 9 mining colony, watching the sprawling operation below. 3,000 colonists, engineers, miners, scientists, and their families, all working to extract the precious quantum crystals that powered half the galaxy's technology. The blue-white glow of the mining lasers cut through the perpetual twilight of the tidally locked planet, a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. "Production report, Captain," said Tarn Riggs, her chief operations officer, offering a data tablet. "We're exceeding quotas by 17% this quarter." Voss nodded, pleased. The Xylorian Corporation would be satisfied. Higher production meant better supplies, improved infrastructure, maybe even the school expansion the colonists had been requesting. Any word from the deep extraction team? "That's actually why I came," Riggs said, his expression shifting. "They found something in Shaft Delta. Dr. Naren wants you to see it yourself." 30 minutes later, Voss stood at the bottom of Shaft Delta, nearly 3 kilometers beneath the planet's surface. The air was thick despite the ventilation systems, carrying the scent of minerals and something else, something foreign. "We discovered it when the sonic drills hit this chamber," Dr. Naren explained, leading Voss through a jagged opening in the rock wall. Her headlamp illuminated a space that couldn't possibly exist naturally, a perfect sphere carved into the bedrock, its walls etched with patterns too precise to be geological. "How old is this?" Voss asked, her voice hushed despite herself. "Preliminary dating suggests over 2 million years," Naren replied, "long before any known spacefaring civilization." At the center of the chamber stood what appeared to be a monolith of obsidian material, sleek, black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Its surface rippled subtly, like a liquid frozen in time. "We've detected no energy signatures, no radiation," Naren continued. "It appears completely inert, but watch this." The scientist approached the monolith and held out a small crystal sample from their mining operation. As the crystal neared the black surface, the monolith's surface began to move, reaching out like tendrils of oil. "It reacts to the quantum crystals," said Naren, pulling back the sample. The monolith calmed, returning to its previous state. "Nothing else provokes a response. We think it might be." A distant rumble interrupted her, followed by the colony's emergency alert system. "What was that?" Voss demanded, already reaching for her communicator. The answer came in the form of a terrified voice over the comm system. "Captain, something's happening in Shaft Beta. The walls they're moving." Voss and Naren rushed to the adjacent mining shaft, where they found chaos. The rock walls seemed to be melting, flowing like tar, reforming into shapes that defied natural law. Workers fled screaming as tendrils of the black substance, the same material as the monolith, stretched out, enveloping anything they touched. "Evacuate the lower levels," Voss shouted into her communicator. "All personnel topside now." But it was spreading too quickly. The black material flowed like a living thing, consuming equipment, rocks, and horrifically, people. Those touched by it didn't die. Not immediately. Instead, they transformed, their bodies twisting as the substance enveloped them, using them to create more of itself. "It's multiplying," Naren whispered in horror, using the organic and inorganic material to replicate. The evacuation alarms blared through the colony as Voss organized the retreat. 1,500 colonists made it to the upper levels before the lower shafts were completely overrun. Emergency bulkheads sealed, buying precious time as the colony sent distress signals across all frequencies. "This is Xylorian mining colony Meridian 9, declaring emergency protocols," Voss broadcast. "Unknown entity breached from underground chambers. Rapid replication and hostile absorption of materials and personnel. Request immediate evacuation assistance." The response came within hours, 3 massive Galactic Council vessels entering orbit. Relief swept through the survivors until the communication arrived. "Meridian 9, this is Grand Arbiter Xalax of the Galactic Council Security Force. Your planet is now under strict quarantine. No vessels will be permitted to approach or depart. Quarantine. Voss couldn't believe what she was hearing. We have survivors here. Almost 2,000 people. Our scans indicate the entity you've encountered matches descriptions of the Void Weavers, an ancient self-replicating weapon system created during the Precursor Wars. If they reach any populated world, billions could die. So you're just going to leave us here? Voss demanded. The Arbiter's voice was cold. Containment protocols are clear. The Council has authorized planetary sterilization in 36 hours. I regret to inform you that your sacrifice will save countless lives throughout the galaxy. The communication ended. On the monitors, Voss could see the Council ships moving into formation, preparing weapons that would reduce Meridian 9 to molten slag. In the colony's core facility, the remaining survivors gathered, fear and anger rippling through them. The reinforced doors would hold against the Void Weavers for now, but everyone knew it was only temporary. Outside, the creatures had already consumed most of the colony. Through external cameras, they watched as the black mass spread across the landscape like a stain, reshaping everything it touched into more of itself. "What do we do now?" asked Riggs, his voice hollow. "The Council's going to kill us along with those things." Voss stared at the communication array. The Council had blocked all standard emergency channels, preventing any messages from leaving the quarantine zone. But there was one system they hadn't accounted for, an old human emergency beacon, operating on frequencies the Council rarely monitored. "The Council's not the only power in the galaxy," Voss said, activating the beacon, "and they're certainly not the only ones with warships." The ancient transmitter hummed to life, broadcasting on all human emergency frequencies, a desperate call into darkness, hoping someone might hear. "This is Captain Ilara Voss of Meridian 9. We have almost 2,000 civilians trapped by hostile entities. The Council has abandoned us to die. To any human vessels who can hear this, we need you. Please." As the message shot into space, Voss watched the timer counting down to planetary sterilization. 35 hours remaining. The Void Weavers continued to spread across the planet's surface, building something massive from the consumed materials. And high above, Council ships prepared to eradicate it all. In the darkness between stars, the message traveled. A cry for help, racing against extinction. Fury of the Thunderchild. Captain Desmond Hayes stood on the bridge of the UNSS Thunderchild, the most advanced warship in the human fleet. Steel-gray eyes scanned the tactical display as his ship patrolled the edge of human space, 500 crew members executing their duties with military precision. "Encrypted transmission coming in, sir," announced Lieutenant Commander Chen, her fingers dancing across the communications panel. "It's on the old emergency band." Hayes frowned. Nobody had used that frequency in decades. "Put it through." The desperate message from Meridian 9 filled the bridge. Officers paused in their duties, listening to Captain Voss's plea. Hayes' expression hardened as she described the Council's quarantine and plans for sterilization. "Get me star charts for the Meridian system," Hayes ordered. "And contact Fleet Command. Tell them we're responding to a human distress call." The response from Fleet Command was immediate and unambiguous. "The Galactic Council has declared quarantine. All vessels are forbidden to approach Meridian 9. Hayes' jaw tightened. "Send a response. UNSS Thunderchild acknowledging receipt of orders. Will comply." Lieutenant Commander Chen raised an eyebrow. "Will we, sir?" Hayes turned to his navigation officer. "Plot a course to Meridian 9. Maximum speed." "Sir." Chen lowered her voice. "That's directly contradicting Fleet Command." "I'm aware, Commander." Hayes' voice was steel. 2,000 civilians have been abandoned to die. The Council doesn't get to make that call when human lives are at stake. The Thunderchild's engines flared to life, propelling the massive warship toward the quarantine planet. Behind them, increasingly urgent messages from Fleet Command went unanswered. During the 20-hour journey, Hayes briefed his crew. Intelligence files on the Void Weavers were sparse. Ancient weapons from a forgotten war. Self-replicating nanomachines designed to consume and rebuild, adaptable to any environment. No known weaknesses. No recorded instances of successful containment except through complete destruction of affected worlds. The Council's approach has always been the same, Hayes told his officers. Isolate and incinerate. But that's not how humans solve problems. When the Thunderchild arrived at Meridian 9, they found the Council blockade in place. 3 warships positioned in high orbit, weapons charged. The planet below was barely recognizable, nearly 60% of its surface covered in writhing black structures that twisted toward the sky like reaching fingers. Council vessels are hailing us, Captain, Chen reported. They're ordering us to withdraw immediately. Open a channel, Hayes commanded. When the alien arbiter's face appeared on screen, Hayes spoke with calm authority. This is Captain Desmond Hayes of the UNSS Thunderchild. We've received a distress call from human colonists on Meridian 9. Human vessel, the arbiter replied, mandibles clicking in agitation. This system is under quarantine by order of the Galactic Council. The contamination cannot be allowed to spread. Depart immediately. We're aware of your quarantine, Arbiter, Hayes replied. But there are 2,000 people down there waiting to die. We're not leaving without them. You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. The sterilization begins in 15 hours. If your vessel remains, it will be destroyed along with the infection. Hayes leaned forward. And you misunderstand what humans do when our people are threatened. Stand down your weapons and let us work, or discover firsthand why more advanced species think twice before threatening us. The Arbiter's compound eyes widened slightly. Your primitive vessel cannot possibly withstand our combined firepower. Maybe not, Hayes conceded. But ask yourself this. Are you absolutely certain we came alone? It was a bluff, a desperate one. But the Council's intelligence on human military capabilities had always been intentionally incomplete. The Arbiter hesitated just long enough for Hayes to know his gambit had worked. You have 12 hours, the Arbiter finally said. Then we cleanse this system, with or without your presence. The moment the communication ended, Hayes turned to his tactical officer. Launch the dropships. All combat teams prepare for deployment. Within minutes, specialized shuttles streaked toward the planet's surface, carrying 200 of humanity's elite soldiers. Unlike the Council's distant, antiseptic approach to threats, humans had always specialized in getting dangerously close to problems that needed solving. On the surface, the Void Weavers reacted immediately to the intrusion, waves of the black material surging toward the landing zones. But the human combat teams were prepared with experimental weapons, sonic disruptors that disrupted the nanomachins' cohesion, superheated plasma that burned through their adaptive shells. Commander Sarah Reeves led her team through the writhing landscape toward the colony's core facility, where survivors huddled behind failing barriers. The Void Weavers had nearly breached the final defenses when Reeves' team arrived, cutting through the entities with methodical precision. Extraction team in position, Reeves reported over comms. Beginning evacuation of survivors. Inside the facility, Captain Voss couldn't believe her eyes as human soldiers in advanced combat suits breached the perimeter, establishing the defensive corridor. You came, she said as Commander Reeves approached. We don't leave our people behind, Reeves replied. Now let's move. We have 10 hours before the Council loses patience. As the evacuation began, Dr. Nuren pulled Voss aside. Captain, I've been analyzing the Void Weavers' behavior. They're not just consuming. They're building something. Data from the colony's remaining sensors confirmed it. The vast structures rising from the planet's surface weren't random. They were forming a cohesive pattern, a massive transmitter reaching toward space. They're trying to signal others, Nuren explained. If they succeed, this won't end with Meridian 9. The information was relayed to the Thunderchild, where Hayes and his science team worked frantically to understand the threat. The revelation came from an unexpected source. a junior engineer who noticed patterns in the Void Weaver's molecular structure. "They're silicon-based," the engineer explained, "and they're using quantum harmonics to maintain cohesion across their entire mass. If we could disrupt that frequency..." Hayes understood immediately. The quantum crystals from the mine. They're what activated these things in the first place. They must resonate at the same frequency. A plan formed quickly. The mining colony's main reactor used quantum crystals as its power source. If they could overload it, the resulting quantum cascade might disrupt the Void Weaver's cohesion across the entire planet. But that would mean someone staying behind to trigger it manually, Hayes said grimly. On the surface, Commander Reeves volunteered immediately. "I'll do it, Captain. Get everyone else out." The evacuation accelerated as Reeves and a small team returned to the colony's reactor core. The Void Weavers sensed their plan somehow, focusing their attacks on the facility with renewed fury. 3 soldiers fell, creating a perimeter, their bodies consumed by the relentless black tide. In orbit, the Council ships grew restless. "Your time is running short, human," the Arbiter warned. "Our weapons are locked on your vessel." "Just a little longer," Hayes insisted, watching as the last evacuation shuttles rose from the surface. With the final survivors aboard the Thunderchild, only Reeves' team remained on the planet. "Ready to initiate reactor overload," she reported. "Evacuation shuttle prepped for emergency launch." "Do it," Hayes ordered. "Then get out of there." The reactor's fail-safes disengaged one by one. As quantum energy built to impossible levels, the Void Weavers seemed to sense the coming destruction. Their attacks intensified, breaking through the final barriers just as Reeves slammed her fist on the overload button. "Reactor critical," she shouted, racing for the waiting shuttle. "Detonation in 60 seconds." Her shuttle launched with seconds to spare, accelerating hard toward the Thunderchild as the planet behind them convulsed. The quantum cascade spread like lightning through the Void Weaver's network, their molecular structure collapsing as harmonics tore them apart from within. The Council ships watched in astonishment as the black structures across the planet's surface disintegrated, crumbling into inert dust. What their advanced weapons would have obliterated, the humans had neutralized with precision. As Reeves' shuttle docked with the Thunderchild, the Arbiter hailed them again. "Human vessel." The alien's voice held something new. "Perhaps respect, perhaps fear. The Council will want to discuss your intervention here." "We'll be happy to discuss it," Hayes replied, "along with the Council's abandonment of civilians under their protection." The Thunderchild broke orbit, survivors safely aboard, leaving the Council ships to contemplate what they'd witnessed. Humans rushing headlong into danger that more evolved species would flee, fighting at close quarters where others would strike from safe distances, risking everything to save lives that the Council's cold calculations had already written off. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The story of Meridian 9 became legend, how humans had stood against both the Council and an ancient horror to save their own, how they'd found a solution when the galaxy's oldest civilizations could see only destruction. In the diplomatic fallout that followed, the Council was forced to revise its emergency protocols, establishing a new doctrine that many races privately called the human contingency, the recognition that sometimes the most dangerous species in the galaxy was also its greatest hope. On the Thunderchild, Captain Hayes received both a formal reprimand and an unofficial commendation from Fleet Command. As the ship carried the survivors of Meridian 9 toward their new home, Hayes stood at the observation deck, watching the stars. "They'll come after us eventually," Commander Chen said, joining him. "The Council doesn't forget defiance." Hayes nodded. "No, they don't. But maybe they'll remember something more important, that when the galaxy abandoned those people, humanity answered." In the darkness of space, the Thunderchild continued its journey, carrying the living proof that even in a universe of advanced civilizations and ancient terrors, the most powerful force remained the simple human refusal to leave anyone behind.